At this point, we proceed to the presentation of the first panel on researches from the Association of Private Schools, Colleges, and Universities in the University of Luzon. This will be facilitated by Professor Marvin T. Samson, the Research Director of the University of Luzon. Let me now introduce the members of his panel. For Design Thinking for Social Innovation, we have Dr. Rex Lohr of Innovation Development and Monitoring Hub of Innovation for Inclusion, President of APSCU Metro Dagupan Chapter. Then for Social and Emotional Learning Toolbox for Special Education Non-Graders, we have Dr. Sherry G. Ganzon, the Clinical Instructor of the University of Pangasinan, FINMA Faculty, University of Luzon Graduate School.
We look for ways to push for social innovations through initiatives in the academe. Next slide. So let me now define what social innovation is. So what is social innovation? How does it differ from social enterprise? What is it that we seek to do? Social entrepreneurship is social entrepreneurship and social innovation have become popular rallying points for those who are bugged by their conscience to become change makers to improve our society. Social innovation is any project, whether standalone or within a company, that have social change as its primary objective, where they are simpler, more convenient, and accessible, targeting the underserved or overserved sectors of society. Please note, underserved and overserved. We have thought so much about those who we are serving currently now, but think less of the underserved, and even those who have received too much. Next slide. So when we talk about when we talk about social innovation, we talk about the trifocal focus of people, planet, and profit. This means that we have to ensure that our initiatives focus on people first, without having to forsake our planet, and ensuring that we remain sustainable and viable. Next slide. So the difference between a social enterprise and social innovation is that a social enterprise focuses more on solving a social problem through business. We set up a business and with a soul, and then focus on that. While social innovation looks to solve the problem through a number of different mediums. A social innovator, the person who is doing this, may be an employee in a company, part of a government organization, or a participant in a hackathon. So this is something, when we talk about social innovation, it doesn't only focus on businesses, but it also focuses on within the company. Not just you becoming, a standalone businessman, but you working as an employee inside the company. Next slide. The persona of a social innovator, therefore, is either an entrepreneur, one who sets up a business with a soul, or an intrapreneur, an individual within a company who seeks to innovate for social good. Social innovation, therefore, is not an enterprise, but a process and a mindset. This is actually something that we can take a look at in terms of CSR research about what is an intrapreneur. There have been currently studies looking at entrepreneurship more so than entrepreneurship. We tend to focus on studies on entrepreneurship, thinking that our students are going to end up business owners later on. But come to think of it, the reality of the situation is that majority of our students doesn't end up coming up with their businesses. So they become employees. But they can be trained to think like an entrepreneur within the company. So they are change makers within the company. Next slide. Most social innovation methodologies are wide adaptations, those in the industry. Methodologies such as open innovation, TRIZ, Agile, Lean, Six Sigma, and design thinking are widely used by those who are practicing social innovation. Tim Brown of Stanford D School espoused design thinking as a suitable framework for social innovation because the mindset and the process is rooted in empathy. Next slide. So design thinking, can we go back again, please? So design thinking, I recently did a research on, it's a critical review research on design thinking, looking at current studies all over the world. And I came up with a definition that design thinking is an innovative, creative, and human-centered process and mindset that employs multidisciplinary teams in order to generate user-focused product services or experiences. In other words, it is a collaborative problem-solving approach centered on empathy. The word here is empathy. We always look at and we focus more on empathizing and immersing and understanding who we are designing for. Next slide. Design thinking follows a flexible, non-linear, highly iterative, and circular approach, focusing on discovering, interpreting, ideating, creating, and connecting. The framework basically asks 3 questions. Next slide. Is the solution desirable by your users? Is it technologically and organizationally feasible? And third, will this be financially viable in the long run? Please note that design thinking is not the usual approach that we have, where it's a long loop waterfall approach that you follow step 1 to step 5. It's highly iterative because you keep going back and forth until you finish that, you reach a saturation point before you can move. And 70% of the time is spent on empathizing with the user and understanding who they are. It's called persona building. It is a big shift from the usual demographic way of looking at research and moving on towards psychographic. I think for those who are in the marketing profession or doing market research are familiar with the term psychographic. When we focus on demographics about the gender, the income stratifications and stuff, in design thinking we look at psychographic profiles, the stereotypes, the personalities of a group or a collective or a subculture, and we study them, what they feel, what engages them, their pain points and gain points, their opportunities. So, next slide. So we look at the first part of the design thinking process. Discover is the beginning of the design thinking process, where the designer seeks to know who the users are and understand what the challenge is. The goal of the practitioner is to step on the shoes of the users in order to empathize with them, to immerse in their experience, to understand where they're coming from and observe their experiences. The usual tools in this process are the interviewing or empathy map, personas, to mention a few. The practitioner also conducts research on the technical aspects of the challenge. According to Eminem, you'd have to walk 1,000 miles in my shoes just to see what it's like to be me. So this is the first part. 60% to 70% of the time in the design thinking process is spent on empathy, interviewing, immersing, understanding, and even asking who the users are. There was one time when I was introducing this one to my classmates in my PhD class, because most of us are educational managers, and I asked the question, who your product is in the school. And I would like to ask the same question too from this group. Sino ang produkto nyo sa eskwelahan? Sino po? Kaya I can hear murmurs. The learners. Apparently, it is not. Our product is our program, and our students are our users. Because it's when we treat our students as product, we put them in boxes, where in fact they're not. So when we look at students as users, not as user like how we understand as Filipinos. Kasi pag sasabihin mong user, then sasabihin mong manggagamit ka lang ng tao. But here, in design thinking, our understanding of user is someone who we serve. Someone who is going to be the end user in terms of product. And our product is our program. When we see our students as users, we see our process as service. So next is interpret. The process, in the interpret stage, we process, synthesize, define the problem with the end goal of understanding the root cause of the problem. This is the deepening of the understanding of the problem where the practitioner seeks to read between the lines. Ano ba ang ibig sabihin ng sinasabi nila? There are 3 levels when we interview for empathy. The first part, when we ask people open-ended questions, the first set of answers that they would usually give are opinions and thoughts. When we ask why, we enter the realm of emotions. How do they feel about their opinions? And if we go deeper, then we look at their underlying needs, and that is the target of design thinking. Because when we create something for them, when we create a product, a service, or we innovate something that's new, we usually look for something that engages them, engages their emotions. Because how will they be able to use the product if they don't feel good about the product? That's the whole idea of why Apple and Samsung come up with very, very innovative products. It's because it is an extension of ourselves. And it is what we call this, it answers a deep emotion and need for us. And why is Facebook and Uber and Grab and all the apps are so useful for us? Because it engages us. Next is ideate. The process of ideating comes from 2 words, creating ideas. This is the process, it's an unpacking of thoughts and experiences into tangible and visual pieces to surround oneself with information and inspiration. And next, we have create or prototyping. This is the transformation of your initial idea into something that is low resolution. It shouldn't be, the first set that you should be able to create in design thinking is something that is not polished, smooth, and beautiful. The idea is to show that the concept is good. There's proof of concept. And the purpose is not to make it nice or sell, but to build to fail. To test your idea in order to learn from it. This allows you to better understand how the user or the community will react to your solution. Next. The 5th stage is to let our user or community try it out. Validate and present the low-resolution products or paper prototypes. The designer uses observations and feedback to refine prototypes. Learn more about the user and refine the original point of view. In this stage, this is where designers or researchers or practitioners present their solution in a pitch deck. If you would notice, and if you'd probably hear in Actus, for example, or in startup pitch fests, they usually do pitches. And this is the part where you present your product to the general public after it has been duly tested with your user. Next. While we present the design thinking as a step-by-step approach, please note that it is actually highly flexible, non-linear, repetitive, and highly iterative. Practitioners usually take time moving back and forth in the process, ensuring that the next step brings about better understanding and empathy on the needs of the user. Next. So key takeaways of design thinking for social innovation is that, number 1, it is an empathy-based process centered on the user. In CSR, we take a lot of time trying to understand, coming up with solutions that will solve the problem of the user or our beneficiaries. When in fact, we haven't actually asked them what they really need. When we have a methodology and a methodology or a step or a process or an approach where we start with them, grassroots-based, then perhaps it is something that will engage them and they actually use. I was involved in I got to be part of a design thinking process together with a group of CSOs or the civil service CSOs. I forgot the name of CSOs, but they are NGOs also at the same time. and they were looking at Project NOAA. You know Project NOAA, the weather app. No? It's a weather app, and it's a social innovation in itself. And the problem is with the Project NOAA is that there's actually less users using. They spend so much trying to come up with a solution so beautiful, so technically sound, and yet few people actually use them. And during the design thinking process, one of the persons from NOAA was telling us, our group at the Hub of Innovation for Inclusion, that they were actually kind of introspective in a way that when they did the design thinking, that they realized that when they designed and made the NOAA, they actually forgotten about the user and how to engage them. And perhaps this is a key takeaway for us, that when we come up with CSR projects and when we come up with something that is good, for our communities, we have to put them first in mind. Secondly, we are looking at creativity in terms of a systematic structure for problem solving. It is multidisciplinary in nature, meaning when you want to do something different, when you want to innovate, you cannot exist in an island. You have to come up within a group. You have to be within a group. It has to be multidisciplinary in nature. How did Apple come up with a really beautiful product? It's because they mix together engineering, psychology, business, and marketing into one group, and they did not exist in silos. Fourth is a rapid iteration and experimentation mindset, meaning we need to embrace failure. The purpose of coming up with a prototype is not to sell. It's not to come up with something final, but to iterate in order to learn. And lastly, fail fast, fail fast, fail often, and fail to learn. That's all. Thank you very much. Like questions or?
Okay, so thank you, Mr. Lore. For those of you who have questions or some inquiries or comments, feel free to approach the microphone on the aisles. We'll be entertaining 2 or 3 questions. Or can we do it after everybody has presented? Okay, so you can reserve your questions for a little more time. Okay, so that, well, you can choose the person or the study you would want to ask the question. Okay, so the next presenter has conducted a study on the social and emotional learning toolbox for special education non-graders. She is actually a clinical instructor at the University of Pangasinan, FINMA, and concurrently a faculty member of the University of Luzon Graduate School. When you look at her, she's like a grader, but her mind and her heart, of course, is into teaching and all the way to learning. Please welcome Dr. Cherie Ganzon.
Pleasant morning, everyone. Thank you, Sir Marvin. I've never thought I really look like a grader until today, but you made me look younger anyway. So my study is entitled Social and Emotional Learning Core Competence and Personal Attributes of Special Education Non-Graders. For the introduction, collaborative for academic, social, and emotional learning, CASEL defines social emotional learning as the processes through which children and adults acquire and effectively apply the knowledge, attitudes, and skills necessary to understand and manage emotions, set and achieve positive goals, feel and show empathy for others, establish and maintain positive relationships, and make responsible decisions. This is according to DeWitt in 2014. Now, when introducing social and emotional learning to children and youth with special needs, it is important to remember that brain-based conditions are static throughout the lifespan. An effective cell intervention for children and youth with special needs focus on a young person's profile rather than on a diagnosis, because we always see children with special needs based only on their diagnosis, and we do not actually see what they are capable of doing. Now, CEL has been proven effective in the development of every child. However, there are no available materials which can be used by teachers. They are left on their own, making use of their initiative to teach CEL. Now, if only training in specific CEL design is accessible to every teacher, then the hope of a better future will be brighter for SPED non-graders. Up to this day, children, or I'd rather say teachers, are left on their own, making use of their own initiative to use CEL according to how they thought it could be used among SPED non-graders. And so for the statement of the problem, this study is aimed to determine social and emotional learning core competency and personal attributes of non-graders who are the children with special needs under the special education in the Gupan City. Now, results of this study serve as the baseline data in the formulation of an enrichment package to be an aid in social and emotional development of the non-graders towards enhancement of well-being and better prepare them for mainstream classrooms, because that nowadays is actually the objective of every teacher in the non-grader, to bring their non-grader to mainstream classroom. And so specifically, it sought to answer the following questions. Number one, what are the personal attributes of the non-graders in terms of the following? Letter A, age, B, sex, and letter C, SPED non-grader category. Number two, what is the level of social and emotional learning competence of the non-graders by their parents or guardians in terms of the following core areas? First one is self-awareness. Second, self-management. Third, social awareness. Fourth is relationship skills. And the last one is responsible decision-making. For the third, what significant difference exists between the personal attributes of non-graders and their social and emotional learning core competency? And for the fourth, what are the learning difficulties and limiting factors of the SPED non-graders as assessed by the SPED teachers? And for the last one, what special education enrichment package can be conceptualized to enhance social and emotional learning among non-graders to promote effective instruction and support? So for the methodology, I made use of a mixed method using sequential explanatory and quantitative qualitative design, where personal attributes of non-graders and their social and emotional learning core competency are used for the quantitative data collected and analyzed. Now, for the context of this study, the social and emotional learning competence were also mentioned, again, as self-awareness, self-management, social awareness, relationship skills, and responsible decision-making. For the qualitative data, they were sourced through focus group discussion among teachers, and I explored into the limiting factors the learning difficulties encountered by teachers along teaching and learning activities of the SPED non-graders. Now, two instruments were used in this study to elicit data. The main instrument for parents or guardians is adapted, modified, and patterned by the researcher from CEL competency by the Collaborative for Social and Emotional Learning, or CASEL. Now, to probe further, an unstructured interview guide for special education teachers was formulated to generate data on the learning difficulties and limiting factors of non-graders. Now, for the results and discussion, For the first one, personal attributes of SPED non-graders. For age, the non-graders are dominated by school-age children at 57.5%. For sex, more than half of the SPED non-graders are male, which is 63%. And for the SPED category, hearing impairment at 34% is the main disability among SPED non-graders. Now, for the cell competence of SPED non-graders, cell core competence level of non-graders along the 5 areas with a weighted mean of 2.91 rated as moderately competent was found out. For the test of difference of cell core competency, findings revealed that no significant difference exists between all areas of cell core competency and age and cell core competency and sex, where p-values is greater than 0.05. In a post hoc analysis, however, on the difference of cell competence by SPED category across responsible decision-making, again, a significant difference is found out between decision-making, the 5th area of cell core competency, in terms of SPED category, where p-value is less than 0.05. Now, the past test on the difference of cell competency by SPED category revealed that autism and intellectual disability are statistically significant in all areas of social and emotional learning, which signifies that these conditions of children affect their social and emotional aspects as found out in this study. Now, for the limiting factors identified by the learning difficulties of SPED non-graders, encounter difficulties in learning and factors that limit SPED non-graders in cell were explored in a focus group discussion with SPED non-graders, and 4 major themes emerged. These are, first one, complex nature of special needs. For the second one, socioeconomic factors limiting a child. For the third one, roles of SPED non-grader teachers. And the last one, being a SPED non-grader teacher. And so I came up with a proposed enrichment package for children with special needs. Now, this enrichment package is called Eleos KidVax. So the term Eleos is a Greek terminology which means compassion. Compassion was used to point out that life is more meaningful when compassion is shown to others as a manifestation of love. Now, this is not only felt and kept within oneself. It flows from person to person. And in this learning package, Eleos flows to every child regardless of cognitive nor affective impairment, which is actually the objective in creating a package. Now, Eleos KidVax focuses on the areas of cell which are recognized by the proponent as gaps in teaching children with special needs. Now, discover concepts in psychiatry and psychology, which are used in the clinical areas, tailored and made easy for special education. Because again, the problem of SPED non-grader teachers is the know-how on how to implement social and emotional learning. And so these are enumerated as follows. First concept, number 1 is therapeutic communication technique. So this creates the right tone for a teacher to start a good conversation in establishing a teacher-child relationship. Now, these techniques are expected to be used by the teachers so that the children will be able to emulate them and make it a part of daily conversation. Now, this will also foster therapeutic relationships with other children. When they do practice it every day and it becomes normal for them to talk in this manner, cell becomes easier. Number 2, behavioral contract. This allows the teacher to explain to the child his or her expectations along the teaching-learning process. Now, this will facilitate the cooperation of the child throughout the learning activities, which we usually do even in our students for college, because they said that it would always be good if we try to give them a contract prior to making them learn our concepts so that facilitating learning will be easier. Now, number 3, teaching learning activities. These are the activities which will be introduced to the child and expected to be accomplished by the child upon guidance and monitoring of teachers. Positive reinforcement will be applied in the form of rewards to motivate the child during activities. Number 4 is assertiveness training, and this is a sentence which expresses a teacher-child's emotion without being on the defensive side. Now, this will prevent conflict on the part of the teacher or child, as it is a form of therapeutic confrontation with passivity. As used to psychiatric patients, we always try to emphasize that when they make use of assertiveness training, they make use of the sentence, when you blank, I feel blank. The 5th one, support group. These are the family members, friends, and teachers who acknowledge every child of value and worth. Now, these people assist in the education of children with special needs. And for the conclusions, now, based on the findings, I have concluded that self-competence level of SPED non-graders is affected by their personal attribute, specifically SPED categories, autism, intellectual disability, visually impaired, and hearing impaired, which can be statistically different in the core areas of social and emotional learning. Now, the difference on self-competency can be attributed to factors relative to the teachers or parents who play important roles in educating the children. Support system is thus significant in the development of the children with special needs. Overall, it can be concluded that the non-graders are moderately competent in the core areas of SEL, and this will promote the development of the children with special needs, psychosocial abilities. For the recommendations, with the findings and conclusions drawn, now I have recommended the following. First one, it is highly suggested that SPED non-grader teachers will consider the use of the proposed social and emotional learning package for a well-organized SEL activities that are relaxing and pleasurable, both to the teachers and to the non-graders. For the second, a parallel studies also encourage among other researchers with higher number of participants to verify if the results will establish the external validity of this research. With this study, I have made use of 73 subjects. And number 3, attendance of SPED non-graders to self-awareness or stress management seminars is also recommended to prevent burnout. This will also promote relaxation and prevent emotional vulnerabilities that may affect teaching performance. That's the end of my presentation.
Yes, thank you, Dr. Ganzon. Before we proceed with the next presenter, we would like to acknowledge some of our friends from UpSchool Region 1. We have Mr. Ray Beraza, Region 1 Officer and BP for UpSchool Western Pangasinan. He's over there. And also we have representatives coming from the Virgen Milagrosa University Foundation. We have the following: Dr. Catherine Torrio, the Vice President for Academic Affairs. Ma'am. We have Professor John Ramel A. Tumbaga, University Research Coordinator and Planning Officer, and Professor Aliguas May Dumlao, the University Extension Coordinator. Thank you for coming and joining us. Okay, so we have this time the engagement of our libraries, our learning resource centers, both in the public and private academic institutions in the province of Pangasinan. to present a study on library outreach engagement of the public and academic institutions in Pangasinan is the Chief Librarian of the University of Luzon and the former Regional Officer of the Philippine Librarian Association Incorporated. Please welcome Dr. Lorena Yu Ontango.
Good morning once again. So the title of my research is Outreach Engagement of the Public and Academic Libraries in Pangasinan. And to give you the background of this study, as gateways to knowledge and culture, libraries play a fundamental role in society, as stressed by White. The resources and services they offer create opportunities for learning, support literacy and education, and help shape the new ideas and perspectives that are central to a creative and innovative society. Also known as extension services, library outreach brings the library to non-traditional or underserved patrons through programs and services. Libraries, public or academic, should design outreach program or services that could meet the needs of the people in the community and in the promotion of the outreach engagement. But however, library outreach has remained generally unpopular for various reasons, and this is true in the province of Pangasinan. And for the theoretical framework of the study, so this study is anchored on Jean-Jacques Rousseau's social contract theory, which was designed to explain and legitimate the relationship between the individual and society and its government. Further, this study also anchored on social responsibility theory. It is an ethical or ideological theory that an entity, whether it is a government, corporation, organization, or individual, has a responsibility to a society. Also, it is the continuing commitment by organization to behave ethically and contribute to economic development while improving the quality of life of the workforce and their families, as well as of the local community and society at large. So the above theories serve as foundation for the present study, since libraries are information agents of society and are socially responsible for providing the highest level of service to all library users. And for the purpose of the study, considering the importance of the library outreach engagement, this study attempts to critically ascertain the extent of outreach engagement of the public libraries and academic institutions in Pangasinan, as well as determine the barriers to performing such services. Results of the study serve as the basis for formulating an integrated library outreach program model for highly visible and responsive extension services concomitant to the strategic trust of libraries, with strong participation, partnership, and linkages among these libraries. Better outreach services and activities can be developed. Specifically, this investigation sought to answer the following questions. So first, what is the extent of library outreach engagement of the public libraries and academic institutions in Pangasinan along the following program areas? So we have 5. First is we have the technical assistance. Second is we have the professional assistance, special assistance to marginalized groups, physical and resource development assistance, and the last one is information technology assistance. And number 2, what significant differences exist in the extent of outreach engagement of public and academic libraries in Pangasinan in the aforementioned program areas. And 3, what barriers are encountered in the outreach engagement of public and academic libraries in Pangasinan? And last, what integrated library outreach program model can be formulated to intensify the extent of engagement in extension services of the public and academic libraries in Pangasinan? And for the methodology, this study used the descriptive method of research, specifically survey and a comparative analysis. And for purposes of triangulation, analysis, and interpretation of the data were substantiated using a qualitative approach, utilizing the focus group discussion. With the library personnel and community members to validate the responses of the head librarians. And to this end, questionnaires aided by interviews were employed to validate answers. The researcher also used the frequency count, ranking, mean, and the t-test as statistical tools. And to ensure correct and accurate interpretation of the results, responses will be tabulated, scored, and interpreted using the 5-point Likert scale. So 5, we have highly engaged, 4, moderately engaged, 3, fairly engaged, 2, negligibly engaged, and 1, not engaged. And for the discussion of the findings, 2 groups of respondents participated in this study. The first group was composed of 21 head librarians of public libraries, and the second group was composed of 17 head librarians from academic libraries, for a total of 38 respondents from the province of Pangasinan. And for specific problem number 1, regarding the extent of library outreach engagement of the public libraries and academic institutions in Pangasinan along the program areas, Table 1, next slide please, shows the result and the findings. So it shows from the table regarding on technical assistance. For letter A, the first program area, technical assistance, the public libraries appeared to be fairly engaged with a polled mean of 2.96. And the academic libraries, on the other hand, had a polled mean of 2.54, which suggests that they are negligibly engaged for the same program area. Overall extent of engagement for technical assistance is fairly engaged based on the weighted mean of 2.77. Next, please. For letter B, both public and academic libraries were fairly engaged in terms of the professional assistance program area, with polled mean of 3.33 and 2.81, with an average of 3.10. Next slide, please. And the result for the program area on special assistance to marginalized group, the public libraries were negligibly engaged with a polled mean of 2.37, and academic libraries were not engaged with a polled mean of 1.66. Combining the means for public and academic libraries shows that the program area had a weighted mean of 2.05, which suggests that both types of libraries are not active in providing outreach programs for marginalized groups and have not institutionalized this kind of engagement. For the next, in contrast to the results of the technical assistance, the result for physical and resource development assistance showed that the public libraries were negligibly engaged with a polled mean of 2.51, while the academic libraries were fairly engaged with a polled mean of 3.08. In general, both public and academic libraries were fairly engaged in physical and resource development assistance with a weighted mean of 2.77. This fairly engaged rating is validated by the responses of the library personnel who participated in the focus group discussion, where they pointed out that they cannot provide materials to help learning centers in the community because of, first, lack of resources and funds, and the absence of support from their school administrators. Oh. For the last program area on information technology assistance, public libraries were not engaged with a polled mean of 1.45, and academic libraries were negligibly engaged with a polled mean of 1.98. The combined mean of 1.69 for both libraries implies the unpopularity of information technology assistance as a form of outreach engagement. This could be due to the absence of computer facilities, including Wi-Fi and internet access at the community centers, and the unavailability of venues for the conduct of the related activities. Next slide, please. So in summary, sorry. The public libraries had a weighted mean of 2.52. Next slide, ma'am. So in summary, the public libraries had a weighted mean of 2.52 for the 5 program areas, while the academic libraries had a weighted mean of 2.41. Combined, the public libraries and academic were negligibly engaged with a total weighted mean of 2.48. And this finding implies minimal engagement of the public and academic libraries in conducting research or outreach activities in the community, and that libraries in Pangasinan are not visible in the community. And this was again confirmed by the community members who participated in the focus group discussion. They said that librarians are seldom seen visiting their communities, and that the only library services they are familiar with is the book mobile service, which is very common to any type of libraries, which caters only to children at daycare centers and to out-of-school youth. Community members express their needs for more reading materials in their barangay community centers that can help improve reading habits and quality of life. In a similar manner, the teachers who also participated in the focus group also suggested that they needed books and other learning resources as well as library training to help and guide them in the library work and to better understand the work and function of their libraries and learning centers. Next slide, ma'am. For specific problem number 2, concerning with the significant difference in the extent of library outreach engagement of the public and academic libraries in Pangasinan, in the aforementioned 5 program areas, when tested statistically, the null hypothesis was accepted at 0.05 significance level. And that can be seen on table 2 on next slide. So that was, this was the result of the t-test. And this implies, next slide, ma'am. This implies that there is no significant difference that exists between the outreach engagement of public and academic libraries in the following program areas. And these are the technical assistance, professional assistance, special assistance to marginalized group, physical resource development, and information technology assistance. It can be inferred that the public and academic libraries have similar programs along library outreach and that these are assessed to have negligible engagement. So for the next problem, regarding the barriers, there are 8 items identified as the most pressing barriers encountered by both types of the libraries. We have first, the lack of financial support from the local government or the school administrators. That is evident during the focus group discussion. Next one, we have the insufficient staff, personnel to perform the activity. Next one, no encouragement from the school administrators and or the local government officials. 4, school administrators or local government officials do not let their library personnel to go out. 5, that is lack of transportation facilities because there are some libraries who do not have their mobile or the service mobile for the outreach. And 6, we have lack of time. 7, inadequate library resources to support the outreach service. And the last one is lack of cooperation and coordination between the librarian and the community coordinators. Moreover, the extent of barriers encountered by these libraries were also measured in this study, and the finding reveals that the public libraries had a polled mean, that the public libraries had a computed value of 2.81 as polled mean or moderately serious. And the academic institution, however, with a rating of 2.63, have perceived the barriers encountered as also moderately serious barriers. For the last specific problem, with regards to the integrated library outreach program model, hinging on the measures on the extent of library outreach engagement, as well as the barriers encountered of the public and academic institutions, a model for integrated library outreach program was developed to address the diverse concerns relative to the different program areas in order to strengthen the engagement in extension services of the public and academic institutions in Pangasinan. And for the conclusion, based on the foregoing findings, it is generalized that considering the acceptance of the null hypothesis, there seems to be low awareness and realization among library stakeholders, particularly the management of these institutions, on the significance and value of the library outreach based on the mandates as spelled out by the Professional Regulatory Board for Librarians in the Standard for Philippine Libraries. And consistent with the principle of social responsibility, the libraries as organization are duty-bound to render community-based library outreach to fully realize its goals. Libraries should be visible in the community. And if the library clients do not go or cannot come to the library, it is therefore necessary for the libraries to reach out to these people to where they are or where these people are. It might be in the church, it might be in the amusement center, in the park, so we can go to them. And it is therefore necessary to promote engagement and community outreach of the public and academic libraries in Pangasinan. Hence, the need for model to guide the implementation of engagement program and activities in the purview of the library community outreach. So, the next slide. This is the model or the output of this study, which is the integrated, no ma'am, the title first. Here. So the integrated library outreach engagement program for the public and academic libraries, and we call it the Reach Out model. Next slide, ma'am. So this integrated library outreach program model is guided by the sets of principles comprehensively embodied in the acronym Reach Out, with the result of the study pertaining to ascertaining the extent of engagement and outreach of public and academic libraries in Pangasinan along the 5 program areas. So we have again the technical, professional, special assistance to marginalized group, library physical and resource development, and library information technology assistance. So this framework was conceptualized to promote the library outreach. So Reach Out, next slide, ma'am, is spelled out in the manner as follows. So we have R, reaching out to people regardless of their culture and status of living. And E, encourage and empower libraries to participate and conduct library outreach program. A, attitude. Of course, this is more important. Attitude is very important in conducting an outreach. C, care. Care for the needs of others. H, for human factors need to be in place in doing the outreach. Open your heart to better serve the people. Understand the complexity of the outreach. And time is most important in conducting an outreach. We also have a vision and a mission statement for the outreach. So, for the vision, an integrated and comprehensive library outreach program that provides opportunities for holistic enrichment of the individuals and the community in a lifelong learning environment. And for the mission of this outreach program is to serve the public of all ages, especially the marginalized and the underserved, in the upliftment of quality of life and standard of living in Pangasinan with informational, recreational, intellectual, and special needs in a variety of formats. For the next slide, we have the goals and the objectives. So we have 6 goals. First, of course, is to provide a strong partnership among libraries in Pangasinan through integrated library outreach program. Second, encourage libraries in Pangasinan to actively engage in the outreach activities towards the realization of ASEAN 2015. 3, create library consciousness among the people of the community. Spotlight the existence of the library, where they are located, what do they contain, and to identify the services and activities they can render to help people in their informal self-education. And 5, encourage the people to use the library and to make the maximum use of the library resources for the development of the society. And last one is to enhance community cooperation in Pangasinan. For the next slide, in order to realize the following goals, the program implementers, if in case you want to adopt this model, you can actually download since this one is already published. Implementers of different libraries are encouraged to observe the following phases. So we have phase 1. We need to set our vision, of course, mission and the goals and objectives. For the phase 2, we have to design effective organizational structure. 3, formalize and institutionalize. 4, identify areas of services or activities. 5, we should look for potential partners, of course, for collaboration. 6, select beneficiaries. 7, multi-stakeholders planning. 8, implementation of plans. 9, ensuring sustainability. And last, assessment, monitoring, and evaluation. Of course, there's always a monitoring and evaluation. And this, next slide, ma'am. I have made a diagram for these steps or the phases, and we call it as a functional outreach program continuum. Ma'am? So that is the name of this diagram, Functional Library Outreach Program Continuum. I have also a sample of organizational chart for the library community outreach program, wherein you can also make use in your school or for your library. So that is the sample. And for the recommendation of this study, in line with the findings and the conclusions, the following recommendations are deemed appropriate to achieve the goal of this study. First is to dissemination of the proposed integrated library outreach program model to public libraries and academic institutions be made to serve as frame of reference by both libraries in enhancing their outreach engagement and to promote partnership among them. Further sharing of findings of the study to the local government units and to the academic school administrators in Pangasinan in aid of logistical and financial support for more efficient, creative, and productive library outreach program plans. Next, it is recommended to strengthen the outreach activities on the 5 program areas, particularly the conduct of trainings and seminars to all in charge of the library learning resource centers in their communities in order to enhance the competencies of the staff. Further activities that actively engage in the affairs of the young population should also enhance. For number 3, public and academic libraries should not forget their role as information agent of the society. It is therefore recommended for the libraries to enhance and improve their reference and research assistance to the people, most importantly to the students and research scholars. Academic libraries should facilitate access to resources, both print and non-print, as well as the scholarly electronic resources to all possible community users. So we are not just catering the, especially so with the academic library, we are not just catering the academic community, but also we should cater also our community people. Number 4, institutionalize the library outreach program in order to include in the schools program plans and local government plans. 5, enhance the cooperation and coordination between the librarians and the community leaders through the conduct of regular meeting to ensure close coordination and cooperation among them. And the last, conduct of further studies is deemed in order to monitor improvements of the outreach engagement of the public and the academic libraries. And for the next slides, the following slides, this will show on how the public and the academic libraries, particularly the UL and the Dagupan City, engage in the outreach activities. So that is how we serve our community. So we help them not only as storytellers, but also on technical assistance, because that was aired during the focus group discussion, from organization down to reading literacy. So that is how we engage ourselves in the outreach in our community. In partnership with the Dagupan City librarians. So that ends my presentation. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Lorraine. Okay. Maybe at a time when social media is in an explosion, we think of libraries as indispensable things. But of course, with the presentation, we're able to realize we go back to the basics of library education and the importance of learning resource centers in the community, well, in the government as well as the academic librarians. This, I believe, are particularly important, especially in far-flung areas, those with no access to educational facilities. Thank you very much. I'd like to mention that with the comprehensiveness of the study and the results as expressed in the different venue for the deliberations, okay, Dr. Ontanco's study or research was chosen as the first place in the 2017 National Research Conference paper presentation among academic and public librarians. So congratulations to you. Okay. Before we continue further with our presentations, AppSchool Region 1 and particularly UL would like to acknowledge the following people for their support, their encouragement, and of course their persistent coordination. We'd like to acknowledge and express our thanks to Ms. Noreen Bautista of BCYF. Okay. Also to Dean Leah Makatangay, the thought leader of the NCEC, the National CSR Educators Conference or Congress. And of course, to the ever-engaging and the thought-provoking leader, the very hardworking chair of the BCYF, Mr. Tony Yap. Thank you very much to these people. And so, we'll have to continue with the presentations. This time, we all know that research and extension programs of universities and colleges are important. And so, the next presenter, who is actually a native of Vigan, Ilocos, and he used to be I should say, a OFW. He was involved in teaching in Saudi Arabia. Also an alumnus and a visiting professor of the University of Luzon. His presentation rather, is entitled Best Practices on Research and Extension of Gordon College. Let's all welcome, with a hand, the Research Director and the Dean of the Institute of Graduate Studies of Gordon College, Dr. Ruel P. Anicas.
Thank you very much, sir. It's always nice to be part of the group of University Luzon, and I'm very much proud as an alumnus of University of Luzon Graduate School, wherein I finished my first doctoral degree, the Doctor of Arts in Educational Management. Once again, good morning. So for today, I will be presenting the best practices on research and extension of Gordon College. Next slides, please. I would like to give a short presentation of what we have in Gordon College, wherein this is under a local university and colleges, or this is what we call LUCs. So we have here, this is a local government college headed by our Honorable Mayor Roland Paulino. Do believing in transparency and good governance. And this is our building, which is a 6-story building, having 35 offices and or faculty rooms. We have 29 laboratories and training rooms, simulation rooms, 42 classrooms, lecture rooms, 14 other rooms like the Faith House and clinic and others. Floors reached by stairs or elevators. In front of the building is an oval tract. All classrooms are air-conditioned. We have 3,700 plus students, but 80 to 85% are government scholars. And we are offering graduate studies, bachelor degrees, and senior high school programs. Next slides, please. This is just an overview of my presentation, wherein the rationale for developing a research agenda for Gordon College is to ensure that there is systematic research in this sector, not just to make higher education better, but also to enhance understanding of the contemporary society wherein research plays a vital role, as well as in the extension services of the college, its challenges and possible future available to it. Next slides. On research, we are obliged, the administrators, the faculty, and the non-teaching staff are obliged to conduct research on the following areas. First, based on the agenda set by the Commission on Higher Education, wherein quality and excellence, relevance and responsiveness, utilization of information and communication technology, the access and equity, and efficiency and effectiveness. We are also obliged to conduct studies on the policy-oriented researches. This is institutional. Then we have also action researches, extension-oriented researches, wherein I will be presenting as part of our best practices. Ethnographic researches, because Olongapo City is within the area of Zambales, the province of Zambales, wherein we have the indigenous peoples, or the ATAS. Then the research and support instruction in the various disciplines, and the newest of all, to research to revise and update all the curricular program offerings towards outcomes-based curriculum. And I will be presenting the best practices to achieve what we are doing. These are the strategies we are doing to achieve our research agenda. First, we have the established linkage with stakeholders, wherein we all know that linkages and networking with other stakeholders having similar objectives with Gordon College shall be established. These strategies also aim to maximize dissemination and understanding of program projects, since the approach is participatory. Second, we have the internationalized research collaboration, wherein we do believe that collaboration can play a key role in the capability building of qualified personnel. For example, through the co-supervision of the graduate students from other countries, issues such as climate change transcends national borders and demand international collaborations. Next, optimize public-private partnership. With cooperation from the local government units, or LGUs, and the non-government organizations, our NGOs, or the people's organization or the PO, some applicable technologies and or information can already be utilized even when the research is still ongoing. So like for example, for the Oplan Tokhang, so surrenderies in Olongapo City, they are engaged right now with a livelihood program wherein they are making caskets, wherein it is explained that if they will continue what they are doing, then they will be put in that casket. Another also is, since 2016, we have this, what we call this one, the leptospirosis, wherein they conducted also research, wherein bawat huling daga, katumbas ang 10 pesos. Okay, so that's also another project of the City Health Office of Olongapo City. And this is under the optimized private partnership. Number 4, we have the adopt a multidisciplinary approach in conducting research, wherein this approach minimizes the span of time required to address multifaceted problems while optimizing the budget to carry out activities of the research project. Number 5, encourage newcomers in research through group research. This strategy is also aimed to encourage maximum participation in research activities, wherein we are giving, we deload our faculty, and at the same time, right after the completion of a research study, they are being awarded with 40,000 pesos as a grant. And they will, we are also selecting, being the director of the research office, I'm selecting the best research paper and best researcher. And that's every year. Number 6 is the optimized human resource development, hiring a personnel who have background in research from universities and research institutions recognized for their prolific research and development outputs can greatly expand the researchers' force in Gordon College, because we have the project and the program of our city mayor right now that we will be making Gordon College as the Center for Research and Development in Region 3. Then number 7, provide support to researchers' efforts. Support can be in the form of facilitating procurement of supplies and materials, equipment, and other important inputs in the conduct of research activities. Other forms of support are in terms of travel grants to attend or present papers in scientific fora, gatherings, publication support, and cash incentives. And number 8, best strategy, we have the create an atmosphere conducive to researchers. Researchers require a place and scientific tools to do some critical thinking and apply the ideas using some tools. So that's the reason why we have already the research center wherein they are working individually. Next slides. These are also our best practices or strategies along with community extension and services. Number 1, conducting barangay community household needs assessment as basis for community extension project proposals. Second, assessing and evaluating the impact, effectiveness of a specific extension, community-based projects and the implementers and beneficiary client partner community. Number 3, evaluation and analysis of the sustainability of community extension projects. And last but not the least, we have the partnership and linkages to different international community extension organizations, wherein we have the Pearl S-backed foundation, wherein we're receiving 5 million every year. Then for the last slides, this is the conclusions. The Gordon College Offices of Research and Community and Extension Services are continuously developing a long-term plan for community and continuity and sustainability, strongly institutionalizing the Research and Community Extension Services program, respectively. This is all for today. Good morning, and thank you very much.
Okay, thank you very much, Dr. Ruel Anicas. By the way, I'd like to mention that Dr. Anicas is a multi-awarded international researcher here in Asia and, well, of course, in Saudi Arabia. And as well as he has been awarded as an outstanding OFW. Oh, obviously. By, of course, the Overseas Welfare Administration, OWA. Yeah. At this juncture, before we continue with the next presentation, we'd like to acknowledge also Dr. Angeline May P. Juan, the Vice President for Finance of the VMUF, the Virgen Milagrosa University Foundation. VMUF is actually a leading member of the APSCO Region 1 and APSCO Metro San Carlos chapter. Thank you for gracing the occasion, ma'am. Okay. So now let's move on to the next presentation. It's actually a research on corporate social responsibility in private education institutions. Okay. It is conducted by two educators, Dr. Donna Joy A. Mangada, the program coordinator of the College of HRM Tourism at the University of Luzon, together with Dr. Amalia G. De La Cruz, a CPA, the Dean of the College of Business Administration and HRM Tourism, and of course, the program coordinator of the Doctor of Business Education program of the University of Luzon. To present the topic or the research on corporate social responsibility in the private educational institutions, the APSCO perspective. Please welcome Dr. Amalia G. De La Cruz.
Good morning. Good morning. Good morning. The title of my study is Corporate Social Responsibility in the Private Educational Institution, the APSCO Region 1 Perspective. Okay. This study examines the extent of knowledge. Slide. Nawala. Okay. So actually, this study will examine the extent of knowledge. It examined the extent of knowledge, perception, and attitude of educational institution as regards to promotion and practices on CSR under the auspices of the Association of Private Schools, Colleges, and Universities, Region 1, or APSCO. Data from a survey involving administrators or official representatives of 36 institutions of learning from the 7 chapters of the organization, namely Eastern Pangasinan, Ilocos Norte, Ilocos Sur, La Union, Metro Dagupan, Metro San Carlos, and Western Pangasinan were used in the analysis. Next. For purposes of validation, informal interviews and focus group discussions were employed. Major findings revealed that in terms of knowledge, majority of the representatives' educational institutions regard CSR as an initiative to assess and take responsibility for the institution's effects on the environment and impact on social welfare. These are aimed at enhancing community support and trust, as well as promote paternalistic relationships, as well as embracing equal partnerships to the institutions and community. When you talk about CSR, it is a concept that deals with the integration of social and environmental concerns into the business operation, including private, educational institutions through programs that introduces initiatives promoting interaction with their stakeholders on a voluntary basis. Okay, next. The research context and question. The study purported to ascertain the extent of awareness, perceptions, and attitudes of APSCO Region 1 member institutions with the end view of providing a baseline data in formulating mechanisms that will promote, develop, and sustain CSR initiatives and programs in step with the global local aims of education. Specifically, next, it will answer the following questions. What is the knowledge of CSR of APSCO Region 1 member institution along the area of concept, objectives, and wave of CSR. Next. What is the level of awareness on CSR of the educational institutions along the following: activity and stakeholder involvement? Number 3, what are the perceptions and attitudes of the educational institutions towards CSR? Next. Methodology. With the end in view of coming up with baseline reference for the promotion of CSR advocacy among the APSCO Region 1 member institutions, the descriptive survey research was employed to gauge the knowledge, perceptions, and attitudes of the educational institutions stakeholders utilizing instrument adopted from the questionnaire piloted in the 2015 study of BCI Foundation. The data gathering tool is divided into 3 sections. Number 1, the knowledge of CSR. Number 2, the awareness of the representatives of educational institutions. And number 3 is the perceptions and attitudes of the representatives towards CSR. Results and discussion. Next. Regarding the knowledge or understanding of CSR. Table 1.1. Next. Now look at the table. We have 3 items under the knowledge and the concept. Rank number 1, based on the perception of the respondent, coming from the respondent, it was mentioned that it is an initiative, that CSR is an initiative to assess and take responsibility for the company's effects on the environment and impact on social welfare. So that is rank number 1 for them. For number 2, CSR supports projects external to the normal business activities of a company that are not directed towards making a profit, have a strong developmental approach, and utilize company resources. So it utilizes company resources to benefit non-profit organizations and communities. Number 3, rank number 3. It is a vehicle for companies to establish relationships with communities, channel contributions, and manage their image. So these are the knowledge on the concept of CSR. 1.2. As to knowledge on the objectives of CSR, rank number 1, it aims to enhance community trust and support for them. That is the objective of CSR. Number 2, it aims to improve public welfare. And number 3, it is directed at enhancing school or organization reputation. I just mentioned the top three. Okay, knowledge on the objectives of CSR. Next. 1.3. Regarding the concept underpinning CSR, rank number 1 is letter A. It aims to promote paternalistic relationships between school or the institution and the community. Number 2, it is driven by schools' organization desire to have good public reputation. And number 3, it aims to target services to best target clientele through charities. Next. Concept, in addition, number 1, it aims to embrace equal partnerships between school and community. It strives to develop proactive strategies based on community needs. And equal, rank number 3, it is more focused on sustainability and responsibility as new elements. And it aims to improve economic context in which the school operates. For specific problem number 2, that is the awareness of the corporate social responsibility of the school, let us look at the result. As to activities, okay, I will mention the top 3. So number 1, for them, it's more on community projects. validated as mentioned by our founder of BCY. Number 2, educational projects. These are the activities according to the respondent. And number 3, it's more on healthcare. But of course, there are various activities, but these are the top 3. Next. In relation to the awareness of CSR, stakeholder involvement, top 3 is number 1, the stakeholder involvement. Number 1 is the student. That is usual, I think, for an educational institution. Number 2 is the faculty members, of course. And number 3, that will be the community. Okay, next. Awareness in terms of the preferred CSR activity. Number 1 will be the community projects and educational projects. Number 2 is the environmental projects. And number 3 is the healthcare. As to perceptions and attitude on CSR, the top 3 are as follows. Number 1, CSR in school should be completely voluntary. Okay? Number 2, CSR should be a consideration while setting strategies of school. And number 3, schools need not be concerned with society. Okay, next. Perception on the benefits of CSR. Top 3. Again. Promote long-term sustainability. Enhance community trust and support. Promote transactions, partnerships with other institutions, and attract best students and highly qualified teachers. Next. As to the parameters to consider in the CSR programs, top 3, number 1, we should consider the mission, vision, and values. Number 2, the community involvement and sustainability. And number 3, compliance with all laws and regulation. Next. Attitude on CSR, top 3. Number 1 is transparency is a good principle in CSR, including good governance is a good indicator of effective or successful CSR. Number 2, that will be CSR is compatible with responsiveness, including stakeholder consultation and soliciting their feedback are practical steps for successful CSR. Schools through CSR can enhance well-being without damaging ecological and community life support system, and sharing of best practices in CSR may lead to behavior change. That's why we have this particular conference. And the last one, that will be services offered by the school through CSR will improve positively the quality of life of people as to the attitude in CSR. Next. In conclusion, educational institutions play a pivotal role in developing the senses of community of its stakeholders and their confidence that they can make a difference in the world. Today, the development of social responsibility is a renewed concern of educators, holding a positive vision of the future to help build sustainable and socially responsive communities is imperative for the stakeholders of CSR in schools, colleges, and universities for effective, efficient, and productive initiatives that are well entrenched in educational system, especially in the private sector. Next. Considering the knowledge, understanding, awareness, perceptions, and attitudes of the APSCO Region 1 educational institutions, there seems to be a need for further advocating and promoting CSR practice and programs towards these initiatives, kasi inuubo ako. Pasensya na. In the operation of private educational institutions towards sustainability and social equity. With that, thank you very much, and I hope you were able to identify some of the needed improvement for CSR in the educational institution, and it can be applied in the entire Philippines for the various educational institutions. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Ame de la Cruz. Okay. The next presenter is from App School La Union. To thrive in the future, we need the concepts of networking, creativity, expansion, and modernization. And so, to present us a study entitled Social Responsibility in an Educational Institution Perspective, Collaboration, Innovation, and Contextualization. To present this study is Mr. Fernando Oringo of App School La Union, and he is the academic head of Lorma Basic Education School System. Mr. Oringo represents, or he is representing, Dr. Elizabeth Camara, the App School La Union president. Okay, so we give the floor to Mr. Fernando Oringo.
So once again, good morning to each and everyone. I am Fernando P. Oringo. So I will be discussing a topic, social responsibility in an educational institution perspective. And I will be discussing my talk into 3 categories, namely, first one is innovation, second, collaboration, and contextualization. So this study, it aims to inspire you and for us to question at what specific age is it necessary for a student to conduct a research study. Because the stigma of conducting research studies the idea of conducting research studies only intended for undergrad students, specifically for college students. So one of the major goals of Lorma colleges is to come up with, is to challenge its institution to integrate research specifically in grades 9 and 10 students. So I will be sharing to you the milestones and the stories of. Okay, while waiting for the PowerPoint presentation po. So first of all, Lorma College's Special Science High School is a Level 3 accredited institution, wherein it's one of the few institutions in Region 1 wherein they have achieved the highest level of accreditation. So while we are undergoing our accreditation in the year 2015, one of the biggest challenge that was posed to us by most accreditors is that how far can you go when it comes to research? Are you capable of innovating research and integrate it into secondary education? So that is the challenge that our institution accepted, and we're going to take a look on its success stories. So first one, we're going to review most especially, lagi na lang po natin naisip na research is only for graduate studies, it's only for college students. But in Lorma, we implemented it for grades 9 and 10 students po. And what we did is we tried to look for different curricular foundation that is in line and within the capabilities of our students po. So we have 2 major foundations for our research subject in Lorma Basic Education School. That is what we so-called Project Citizen, and next one is the project-based learning. Next, please. So the good thing about Lorma when we had undergone our accreditation is that different areas were considered. Namely, number 1, goals and objectives, instruction, faculty, and outreach. And there is this one question that was posted to us when we are undergoing our accreditation. How can Lorma College's Special Science High School ensure that there is a sustainability when it comes to outreach program? Because most of us are aware when we are dealing with the term outreach program, it's just by merely donating something. It's by just visiting a community for just a day and setting a program for it. But for Lorma, we tried to make it in a research-based manner, wherein every student is given the opportunity to go out of their classroom, to go out of their comfort zone, in order for them to create a deeper understanding on the true meaning of research. And it was quite difficult on our part to integrate research in secondary education. First of all, number one, a lot of universities would definitely agree that at their age, they need appropriate skill, they need to be provided with background or knowledge about it. But as we go on through the integration of research in in basic education, we have found out that there is one thing that is lacking and that we need to emphasize when we are teaching research not only in high school, but in universities also. We need to make sure that there is the high sense of enthusiasm among our students. In that case, when there is a strong will for them to conduct a study, the knowledge, the necessary knowledge will follow after. Okay, next one. So we're going to answer the question, how did it happen? Why is it really possible that we're going to integrate research subject in secondary education? So we're going to tackle it in three major aspects. Number one is innovations. Second one is collaboration. And last one is contextualization. So first of all, let's start with the innovation. So we have two major curricular foundation for the research subject that will be that was implemented by Lorma College of Special Science High School. Next, please. That is namely the project-based learning and then the Project Citizen. Project Citizen was initiated by the Philippine Center for Civic Education and Democracy, wherein every student is given the opportunity to determine the problem in their society, conduct a research, and lastly, present it to the necessary stakeholders. So gone were those days that we only allow our student to come up with an action plan and present it inside the classroom. Why don't we try to give them an opportunity to talk to the people in authority, at the same time propose their own solution? We have observed that most of our students are always the subject of the study. Why don't we try to motivate them become the researcher themselves and explore their community through research? And for the past years, our concept regarding research in secondary education is only limited through investigatory projects. Wherein if you're going to take a look at it, only few students are given the opportunity to present it to many people. Number one, few institutions are only recognizing it. Example, DOST and Intel. Unlike other type of researches, we can determine a lot of research conferences wherein our students are capable of attending with and presenting their research also. Next po. Next. And so we have found out that most of the concept of our students are only limited when it comes to research when they conduct study and produce soaps or other beauty products, fertilizer, repellents, and food beverages. So for the past years, that is the only concept that they are aware of when it comes to research. So that is one thing that we need to change among our students. Next, please. So usually, where will these research studies go? After them creating soaps, after them creating beauty products, repellents, after them conducting survey, determining the significant difference, usually this research output of our students are just stuck in their library. They're not given the voice for it to be presented outside the country or in front of many professionals. Next po. Next, please. So as I have said earlier, we have two major curricular foundations. Number one is the Project Citizen Philippines and the project-based learning initiated by the Intel Teach. Next one. So what we want to imply among our students is for them to become research ninjas. Next, please. Wherein we need to practice democracy. As a youth, as a member of their community, it is a must for them to get involved also in decision-making, in coming up with solutions also. And involvement. Next one, provide them more opportunity. With the investigatory project, only few students can conduct it. But with a specific type of research, specifically in the field of social sciences, every student is given the opportunity to discover the different problems in our community and create a solution out of these different research studies. So we're not going to focus merely on natural sciences, but we're going to take into consideration other aspects of sciences also, namely number one, natural, second please, social sciences, humanities, and environmental sciences. So we try to expand and provide more choices among our students to conduct a study with. Next, please. So in order, similar to the concept of Confucius, we are just like a web wherein we're interconnected to each other. And we keep on telling that the youth is a powerful tool towards better future. But the main problem is that we're just confining them inside the four walls of the classroom, coming up or knowing the different concepts, ideologies, or scientific explanation without applying it into their real life scenario. So these are the different objectives of our Lormanian research. First one is we need to increase population. We need to try to take into consideration that high school students are capable of publishing their research as well. Next one, and provide total participation and opportunities for our students. Next, please. Collaboration among the stakeholders of the school as well as the community. Actively involve students in policy making. And lastly, appreciation of their own culture. Provide opportunities for students to explore their own potentials also. Next. So when we implemented this specific research subject among our grade 9 and 10 students, these are the results. First one, almost 64% of the different research paper of our students were accepted for research presentation, not only in our country, but outside the country as well. This gained them their motivation wherein we are just high school students, but at early age, we can already conduct a research study. Next one, 21% were already published and they are already peer-reviewed. So try to imagine, at a very young age, our secondary students were able to come up with a research paper and it was even published. And then, of course, there are some points for rejection also because every paper published and peer-reviewed, it needs to undergo specific rigorous process also. And 11% were attended. So most of our students from Norma College's Special Science High School have presented their research not only in the country but in Singapore, Malaysia, Thailand, Vietnam, and Indonesia as well. Next. Okay, so as we started this project in the year 2013, the number or the rate of publication for the school paper of our students increased also. So from 5 published research paper, it went down to 10, and then eventually it went down to 18 published research papers. Next one. Let's move on to the collaboration. So when our students were given the opportunity to present their research in an international conference, they are always referred as the youngest participants, wherein most of the different professionals were always amazed of them because at a very young age, they can conduct a research study already. And with that, we have formed collaboration not only within the Philippine context, but outside the country also. That is why, next please. In the year 2015, Lorma College's Special Science High School was chosen as one of the representative of the Republic of the Philippines in the what we so-called 12 Asia-Europe Foundation Classroom Network Conference. It is a conference among the different educators across Asia and Europe, and they are going to propose a specific research that needs to be collaborated among Asian and European schools also. Next, please. So this Asia-Europe Foundation paved way to our students to collaborate not only with the local students, but international students also. And one of the research topic or project that was initiated by our country and our students is the what we so-called Feeding the Hungry Planet. It all started with the concept that how can you feed the hungry planet? And then our students were able to come up with a research study wherein the term hunger itself has many implications and dimensions. And they were able to find out that the term hunger in the Philippine context does not only focus on the physical aspect. And then when they went out of their community, when they tried to conduct a research study to the different barangay, they found out that the most common hunger every Filipino encountered is the hunger for love. And that is why they conducted a research study for it and created an action plan out of it, which is participated by 14 countries across Asia and Europe. So that is already a very big motivation among our students that at very young age, they can conduct this type of study, which can be collaborated not only in the Philippines, but outside the country as well. Next one. So for our future plans regarding this collaboration, we wanted to collaborate with UTech Philippines, Philippine Information Agency, reinforce our partnership with Department of Education, Department of Science and Technology, Asia-Europe Classroom Network, and National Youth Commission. Because we have observed that if you're going to check on the different websites of National Youth Commission and NCCA, there are a lot of research grants. Why don't we try to use this different funding given by the government in order for us to create or to come up with an action research or a study that can be conducted by our students also. Next one. Let's move on to the contextualization. So one of our biggest milestones is that in the year 2014, our students from our school was invited to present in the APERA, Asia Pacific Educational Research Association, that took place in Hong Kong, wherein they presented a research regarding bias or the modern pirates. And then when this modern pirate research focuses on Filipinos being pirates or fan of piracy in terms of production of videos, different materials online also. And there is this one question that was raised to our student when they presented it in front of many professionals, wherein it paved way for us to look for to dig deeper and contextualize the research curriculum in our school. They simply asked one question: kindly define the Ilocano culture. And then everybody remained silent, even our students. They were so shocked that, yes, we are conducting a research regarding our community, yet we cannot define our own culture. So with that, we try to provide an opportunity for our students to conduct a culture-based research for them to fully understand where they are coming from. And the good thing about it, every time they go out of the country, most of the different listeners from their presentation are always amazed because they got to know Ilocano culture deeper and deeper. Because the sad reality about it, when they try to look for the references regarding Ilocano culture, most of it were conducted by Americans. Most of it were published in University of Hawaii. Most of them were conducted by doctors or masteral students in Hawaii. Yet, our Filipino locals cannot conduct their own research regarding their own culture. So that is the biggest realization that we have identified when we are conducting or integrating research in the curriculum in secondary education. And with that, our students were very much happy because there is this one specific research study that they are so proud they conducted about it. And the study is all about the pottery culture in San Juan, La Union. Because in San Juan, La Union, there is a specific barangay wherein pottery is booming. And the Department of Tourism in La Union keeps on promoting it. And then suddenly, when my students decided to discover the historical background of this pottery, they were so shocked because when they went to the municipal library, the reference or the only reference regarding the history of pottery in San Juan, La Union was based from Wikipedia. So that is what they have identified. We are so proud of promoting our different products, yet we do not have background regarding the historical foundations of it. And they are so lucky because they tried to search a specific community of potters, and they were able to interview the first potter in San Juan, La Union, who is at that time is already 102 years old. And they were able to create an historical evolution of the pottery in San Juan, all the way from the Spanish colonization through the invasion of the Japanese during the World War II. So that gave them a lot of sense of confidence wherein through research, we can be socially responsible and definitely we can define it for the future generation. Next one. So this is, let's go back first, sorry. So those photos, last year we were invited by the Ministry of Education in Malaysia to compete across 80 science high school in Malaysia regarding research. And we are the official representative of the Philippines. And the good thing about it is that Malaysians tend to appreciate our own culture. At the same time, they have seen the ASEAN integration when it comes to our procedures in conducting research and giving the opportunity. And this specific conference in Malaysia was a realization among our students wherein why can we not conduct a research forum also for secondary students in the Philippines? We keep on telling that a lot of universities right now are struggling when it comes to research. If we're going to compare the research publication across ASEAN countries, we are on the lower part. That is because at college level, that is the only time we teach them formally about the concept of research. We do not give them opportunity that at a very young age, they can create a deeper understanding regarding the concept of research. And good thing, the Philippines won gold medal across 90 participants and 90 science high school. And just recently, last July 28 to August 1, they were able to talk to the Ministry of Foreign Affairs of Malaysia and present the research topic. And it is something important for our students because at a very young age, they got to deal with people in authority already and present their proposal, which is what we needed to do, fellow teachers, among our secondary education students. We keep on emphasizing authentic assessment, meaningful learning experience. We're in learning by doing, but the main problem is only confined in the four walls of their classroom. So this is the innovation that we're trying to point out, that high school students are still and are capable of conducting research studies also. And the sad thing about it, when our students are invited for a presentation in the Philippines, they're always scared. And this is a common connotation among them. Na if we're going to present our research to our fellow Filipino researchers, we're always criticized. But why is it that every time we go out of this country and present our own cultural research, we're always appreciated? So that is always the very big problem among us Filipinos, according to my students. Wherein, bakit kaya ganun ang mga Pilipino? Yes. So that is a common problem among us Filipinos, wherein we are referred as professionals, but we do not give them enthusiasm for them to be motivated to conduct a research. Why is it necessary for them to go out of the country, for them to be appreciated, and for them to fully realize that they are capable of conducting research? Okay, next one. Okay, so these are some of the examples of the research paper. Okay, so these are the examples of the okay. These are the different examples of research topics presented by our students into international conferences. And then the good thing about it is that our students are good processor of knowledge. They are more aware of ICT. Disconnect. Okay. And then, hindi yata sila sumasakali sila sa Ayan. So, with that itself, wherein they are more knowledgeable. They are referred as digital natives. They can process information right away. Why don't we try at early age teach them what is APA all about? What is MLA all about? What is Chicago Manual all about? Mga ganon. So, pahinga muna po ako. Opo. Ayan. So let's try to check one by one the different research topics presented or published by presented by our students. First one is future leaders in making, wherein they try to assess is the supreme student government that is being mandated by the Department of Education functional enough towards leadership of our students. Next one, the language of bias among teachers in Norma College's Special Science High School, wherein upon them conducting and discovering the different resources online, the term bias has a very positive impact among our students. Because usually when we're using the term bias, it's quite negative already. But when they conducted a study about it, no. The term bias is somewhat equated to motivation, intrinsic motivation even. So I was so amazed. Personally speaking, I am not that professional when conducting a research, but the good thing about it is that I am learning from my students because the knowledge that they are gaining from the different resources through online system, they can process it right away. Gone were those days that their concept of research is copy-pasting it, but rather it's more in-depth. They provide deeper understanding on what they're getting through social medias also. Next one. Let me take, this is, next please. Back muna po. Ayan. Back po. Ayan. Last 3 minutes. Okay. So one of the good thing about our student is that they choose the specific field that they wanted to conduct a study, be it religion, be it culture, be it sciences, or be it a different field. They are given the opportunity, which is a very good thing because we promote diversity, and then we're just going to give them investigatory project. What if they are not inclined with sciences? They're inclined with a deeper one or a different one. So that is what we so-called diversity, giving them the choice because at a very young age, they are now capable of making informed and intelligent decisions already. And one of the most controversial research topic that was conducted by our student is what we so-called the concept of self-harm. Bakit ang dami ngayong teenagers, maraming teenagers sa Pilipinas ang naglalaslas ng kanilang mga kamay? And at first, I was so scared. Why are you going to conduct a study about it? Who are the people that you're going to interview? You know what? The good thing about it is that they were the first one who knows these people. Unlike us, we're still going to conduct something about it. But for them, they know them personally because they interact with these people right away. And in that case, they were able to identify the different problem of the youth and why is it that they are experiencing or resulting to self-mutilation or self-harm, mga ganun po. And then next one, our students also decided to participate with the different industries. So may mga estudyante kaming they are fond of music, so they conducted a research regarding the radio industry in the Philippines. What is its relevance when it comes to gender, when it comes to stereotyping, when it comes to language. So that is a very good opportunity for our student. We don't want them just to be the absorber of this different information. We want them to become the active processor of this information to propose a solution. And one of the things that is always highlighted in the research study is for them to take a look on the recommendation part. So yun yung lagi namin ina-emphasize sa mga estudyante namin. Please take a look on the recommendation part because that is the part where you take action. After determining these different problems in your community, what are you now then going to do? Mga ganun po. Next one. And then our students, when it comes to coming up with their different recommendation, they came up with action plan. First one is what we so-called butterfly, wherein with just a simple tumbler, we can solve access to water already. Why don't we mga ganong concept po agad? Next one. And then they try to come up with an action plan regarding different themes regarding sustainability, regarding health and wellness. Example, Seaguard. Next one. Cork it like Lorma, wherein there is too much production of paper waste in our community. Why don't we try to use that board, turn it into a cork board and be it an inspiration of posting every dream of Filipino youth. Next one. Kalakalan. It came from two words, kalakal, and making up with a kalan. So those intuitiveness of our student, why don't we try to take advantage of it and become problem solvers, right? Why are we going to wait for them to become college students to propose a solution already? If in fact, at a very young age, they are capable already. Next one. Apo. Risk taker regarding bullying. Again, through days of risk. Next one. So these are just some of the example of their recommendation. E-sip. When we sip, are we realizing that we're contributing a very big factor if we use plastic straw? Mga ganun po. Kaya isip. Mag-isip ka bago ka muna sumipsip. Mga ganun. Okay, next one. Their ideas are so witty. That's why we love taking advantage of it, and they're really good problem solvers. Example, periodical kit. Why don't we try to, aside from giving first aid kits, let's give them a periodical kit for gender sensitivity for women experiencing menstruation at a very young age. Yan po. Next one. Period, di ba? May period ako ngayon. And then, pintangarap, mga ganon. Why don't we try to keep painting on our dreams of our students through arts and colors, mga ganon po. Next one. Yes, masitera. Masitera is the Ilocano term for pots. Ayan. So why didn't, and then they found out that during the Marcos regime, yeah, during the Marcos regime, it's common for every graduating student to plant a tree or to plant. Bakit ngayon nawawala na siya sa ating community na with just simple act, we can do something already towards sustainability? Last one. And for my conclusion regarding this topic, during the meeting of the different Vice Chancellor, University President of Asia Europe Foundation, next please. Professor Abdul Razak highlighted that we, universities and colleges, should not focus on building future employers or employees. We need to ensure that our university is a human university, capable of solving and dealing with the different real-life problems in their community. And lastly, yan, while we cannot safely know what is required in the future, there are 3 basic things that our students need to ensure. They need to learn, relearn, and unlearn in coming up with effective solution. And with that, I will end my speech in saying, kung ang kabataan ay ang pag-asa ng bayan, paano pa kaya ang kabataang mananaliksik? That's all. Thank you so much.
Okay. So the good thing is there is passion in research. But the bad thing is pag nawawalan ng time or ng sound, di ba? So there must be hunger for love, hunger for knowledge, and hunger for the love of knowledge, di ba? And so, thank you very much, Mr. Oringo, for that. Our last presentation, please bear with us. Before we have a sumptuous lunch, let's have a last presentation from APSCO Region 1. Of course, this is about disaster risk reduction management training. And the presenters or the researchers are, we have the Dean of the College of Criminology of the University of Luzon. And at the same time, by the way, the College of Criminology is the only Center of Excellence in Criminology Education awarded by CHED and the only Level 4 re-accredited by PACUCOA. At the same time, she is Dr. Esther B. Bidania, the Commissioner of PACUCOA, Commission on Accreditation. And we have the co-researcher, the Director of Extension Services of UL, and the Vice Dean of the Institute of Graduate Education. We have Dr. Carmelo John E. Vidal. And the research is entitled The Disaster Risk Reduction Management Training and Volunteer Management Capacity of the NSTP NRRCs in the Philippine Higher Education Institutions, which has been presented in several national and regional research conferences. By the way, I'd like to mention that this is a commissioned research. This has been funded by the Local Government Academy Research Engagement and Advocacy Program of the Philippines. So, Dr. Vidania and Dr. Vidal, please take it away.
Of the NSTP as embodied in Republic Act 9163 that provides for the basis of the NSRC activities since 2005. Universities and colleges through NSRC offer the opportunity to develop students a continuous source of volunteers for DRR and other related activities and programs. Its EIs are also important areas for capacity development to disaster prevention education and safe institution of higher learning. However, the Philippine Society of NSTP Educators and Implementers incorporated the Premier National Association for NSTP of more than 150 higher education institutions, reveals that inclusion of disasters awareness and risk reduction in school programs has been sporadic and perceived as a burdensome addition to an already charged curriculum. More so, in far operation of NSRC as training organization and local volunteer support, among other reasons, this may be attributable to ineffective approaches being used and the lack of clear implementation guidelines. While there are periodic attempts by some educational institutions in offering DRR training and volunteer support to local government units, there are no common standards upon which these programs are based. Since the achievement of disaster risk reduction is critical and can be achieved through capacity development of HEIs, as they play quintessential role in disaster education through educational programs such as NSTP and the Operation NSRC in particular. It has given impetus for the conduct of this investigation. This study, therefore, intends to explore whether the NSRC has operated in the purview of its mandates for RA 9163 and RA 10121. Dr. Carmelo Vidal, will you please continue?
Thank you very much, Dean. Ladies and gentlemen, as we all know today, there is an international recognition that response alone is not sufficient to impacts of disasters on larger populations. It bears the obligation to share knowledge that can help with identifying hazards and risk, taking action to build safety and resilience, and reducing future hazard impacts. To this end, the global context for disaster risk reduction is shaped by the Hyogo Framework of Action, or HFA, which actually is supported by a more recent framework called Sendai Framework in building the resilience of nations and communities. And this was adopted by 168 nation states in 2005 and envisions to culminate this year. So this 10-year strategy identifies 5 priority areas for action. So this global blueprint for disaster risk reduction efforts by providing specific operational guidance for promoting disaster risk reduction. It is designed to help guide planning for public awareness and public education efforts to produce increasingly successful and high-impact outcomes. The framework seeks the outcome of the substantial reduction of disaster losses in lives and in the social, economic, and environmental assets of communities and countries. Supported by specific priorities as, number 1, ensure that disaster risk reduction is a national and local priority with a strong institutional basis for implementation. Number 2, identify, assess, and monitor disaster risk and enhance early warning. Number 3, use knowledge, innovation, and education to build a culture of safety and resilience at all levels. Number 4, reduce the underlying risk factors. And number 5, strengthen disaster preparedness for effective response at all levels. The framework emphasizes a shift from reactive emergency relief to proactive disaster risk reduction in the pre-disaster stages by strengthening prevention, mitigation, and preparedness. Specifically in developing countries like the Philippines, as what Webb and Rogers in 2003 put it, capacity building has become dominant in disaster management, policy, and process. Ergo, there is a need to capacitate disaster risk reduction managers. The involvement of communities and institutions for disaster risk reduction, launched with the Hyogo framework, led to the expression in the objectives of the national and regional local project, which is expected to strengthen the sustainability of DRR in educational institutions, and that is both formal and non-formal. Corollarily, the necessity of DRR is made more prominent by the need to develop and strengthen local disaster prevention, mitigation response, and even reconstruction capacities to complement national initiatives and efforts as stipulated in Republic Act number 10121, otherwise known as the Philippine Disaster Risk Reduction and Management Framework Act of 2010, in the purview of the country's status as one of the world's most disaster-prone countries, according to IFRC in 2009, and consistently among the top 5 countries with the highest number of reported disaster events, according to CRED in 2013, considering its geographical location in the Pacific Ring of Fire and along the typhoon belt. Relative to this, as the Philippine government makes headway in integrating disaster preparedness in the institutions of learning, emphasis is placed on managing capacities of institutions of learning in engaging the young people to DRR works. In higher education in particular, there are certain legal mandates that pursue to promote participation of the youth, as in Republic Act 9163, otherwise known as the National Service Training Program Act of 2001, providing for the basis of the teaching of the 25-hour common modular topics that include concepts of disaster risk reduction and management and climate change adaptation, and the creation of the National Service Reserve Corps, also known as NSRC, which shall be composed of the graduates of the non-military program components of NSTP, that is CWTS and LTS. As pointed out earlier in the overview, one of the mandates of NSRC, of NSTP, as stipulated in Republic Act 10121, as a potential training organization for and auxiliary support to local DRRM initiatives, is an innovative approach to DRR, fostering the agency of youth and educational institutions, especially colleges and universities, in groups and as individuals, to work towards making lives safer and communities more resilient to disasters. So universities and colleges through NSRC may offer the opportunity to develop students as continuous source of volunteers for DRR and other related activities and programs. This is to stress that higher education institutions, both colleges and universities, are important areas for management capacity development on disaster prevention education and ensuring the safety of these institutions. Against this backdrop, the Philippine Society of NSTP Educators and Implementers, this is the National Association of all the NSTP, NSRC implementers in the country today, supported the strengthening of NSRC for DRR training and volunteer support as early as 2011, immediately following the promulgation of Philippine DRRM Act in 2010. Since then, risk reduction efforts have been a special focus of the trainings conducted in both national and regional levels, starting in the 8th National Congress, and in an attempt to advocate for institutional support. We are fortunate that we have to back us up in initiatives like research in order to come up with a baseline reference for coming up with strategies. The support of LGA, particularly its program called Research Engagement and Advocacy Program. So in 2013, PISNAID highlighted the preliminary report revealing that DRRM programs in HEIs have been sporadic and perceived as somewhat burdensome on two technical concerns, which adds up to the already charged curriculum, more so insofar as operation of NSRC as an organization that manages training and volunteer corps for local DRR initiatives consistent with RA 10121. Among other reasons, this may be attributable to ineffective approaches being used and the lack of clear implementation guidelines. So in the Congress of NSTP Educators and Implementers held in 2014, as was mentioned earlier, it was observed that in spite of the guidelines set, NSRC units are not fully operational on the basis of DRR training and volunteer support in the local communities. The NSTP and NSRC heads and staff in attendance during that particular conference consensually agreed that a significant number of HEIs lack management capacity. So while there are periodic attempts by some educational institutions in offering DRR training and volunteer support to local government units, there are no common standards upon which these programs are based. Since the achievement of disaster risk reduction is critical and can be achieved through capacity development of HEIs, as they play an important role in the disaster education via educational programs like NSTP and the operation of NSRC in particular. So the study, dealt with measuring the extent of capacity of higher education institutions in the operation of NSRC on DRR training and volunteer management. Allow me at the outset to discuss in particular the methodology, as the panel discussion is to present methodologies of research. The study made use of the mixed method of research, and particularly the concurrent triangulation approach. The concurrent triangulation approach of MMR is characterized by two or more methods used to confirm, cross-validate, or corroborate findings within a study. Data collection is concurrent, and this is for the purpose of generally both methods are used to overcome a weakness in using one method with the strengths of another. Another point that I would like to share has to do with the instrumentation. The principal data gathering instrument used in the investigation is a survey questionnaire. This instrument was based on a cross-section of materials relating to measuring capability of organizations in managing training programs on DRR. The data obtained from the respondents were carefully analyzed with the purpose of probing into patterns or trends insofar as training and volunteer support capacity of a school and community-based DRRM operation is concerned. The unavailability and absence of a standard field-tested survey instrument have prompted the research team to construct a questionnaire checklist as the main instrument in a data gathering following extensive review of literature, particularly that of OCHA's report in 2012. OCHA, or United Nations Office for the Coordination of Humanitarian Affairs, is a body formed in 1991 by the General Assembly Resolution 46 of 182, a resolution designed to strengthen the United Nations response to complex emergencies and natural disasters. So derived primarily from the questionnaire used in the study by OCHA, the researcher identified 7 thematic areas and a total of 32 indicators, also referred to as items, and these are as follows. We have number 1, DRR as internal priority. Number 2, risk assessment and monitoring. Number 3, knowledge of and education. Then we have underlying risk factors, preparedness and response, local government support, and cross-cutting issues. So this national study aimed to measure the extent of management capacity of the higher education institutions across the country in order to provide a baseline input for analyzing the operational status of the National Service Reserve Corps in DRR training and volunteer mobilization. For this study, 43 private higher education institutions and 51 public-run organizations representing the 15 regions of the Philippines participated in the country. The participant respondents' appraisal dealt with 7 thematic areas, as earlier explained, with 32 indicators in total, and are guided by 5-point Likert scale. In summation, the higher education institutions scored moderately in all but one area, and that is underlying risk factors. So if you will have to note, all except for one, okay, of the 7 thematic areas, the higher education institutions, both in the public and private, moderately implemented or moderately has demonstrated moderate extent of capacity. In more specific terms, let us take a look at some of the more important discussions relative to the 7 thematic areas. Number 1, DRR prioritization. Go back, please. The areas consist of indicators as frameworks and structures, planning, financial resources, and human resources. Risk assessment, on the other hand, considered indicators like disaster risk assessment, early warning systems, and risk management system. For knowledge and education, the indicators pertain to information management exchange, formal education, and community training, among others. Underlying factors are all about environmental and natural resource management, adaptation to climate change, and protection of facilities, and the like. for preparedness and response accounted in this area are disaster preparedness, disaster response, disaster preparedness and response, and others. The last two, local government support and cross-cutting issues, involve items like governance, risk assessment, monitoring, and warning, and also community participation and information. So with this particular initial data, the research team probed into the differences and the extent of capacity of HEIs in the operation of NSRC on DRR training and volunteer management. And based on the statistical tests, the null hypothesis concerning the difference between public and private higher educations on their extent of capacity in the operation of NSRC on DRR training and volunteer management support along the 7 thematic areas was accepted at 0.05 significance level. This could be the reason that both public and private higher education institutions are guided by the same laws and implementing guidelines on a general note. On the other hand, results of application of analysis of variance to ascertain the differences in the extent of management capacity of HEIs per thematic area by region and indicators revealed that the ratings are significantly different, which can be attributed to factors like geographical location, poverty threshold level, among others. Then the study also considered enabling and constraining factors in the context of extent of capacity of HEIs. For the 7 thematic areas, the emerging themes insofar as factors that enables the capacity of the HEIs in the operation of NSRC on DRR training and volunteer management are, but not limited to, the following. Number 1 is strong partnership with government, non-government people's organizations, including other agencies that can be tapped for DRR works like Red Cross, local DRRM Council, commitment of NSTP, NSRC personnel, organization of volunteers for DRR, and the like. Regarded as building blocks, on the other hand, are constraining factors that cut across all the DRR and volunteer management thematic areas, and includes issues like financial limitations, technical difficulties, time constraints, lukewarm attitude of the administration, the LGUs and the community people, and lack of research-based initiatives to support DRR training and volunteer mobilization. Based on the findings, the research team proposed for a particular measure in the form of a capacity development model to enhance the extent of capacity of HEIs in the operation of NSRC for DRR training and volunteer management, with the measures on the extent of capacity of the public and private higher education institutions in the operation of a school and or community-based NSRC units on training and volunteer reservist mobilization for local disaster risk reduction, as well as enabling the constraining factors, a model for capacity developed to address the multifarious concerns relative to the thematic areas was crafted to guide the HEIs towards disaster resilient and climate resistant communities in the different regions in the country. So this is what we have for our modest output. The Strategic Capacity Development Program is a model premised on 3 goals. Number 1, functional and sustainable National Service Reserve Corps unit in the higher education institutions. Number 2, relevant and responsive local disaster risk reduction training and volunteer support. And number 3, resilient and resistant HEIs and communities. So guiding the operationalization of the program model is the framework dubbed as for viable NSRC DRR training and volunteer management continuum. This is my modest share in this particular study. That's why I had it named after yours truly. So the continuum named after the proponent is an acronym that represents the different phases involved in capacity development. And these are as follows. Number 1, craft policies and operational plan. Number 2, ascertain internal and external environment. Number 3, resource generation. Number 4, mobilize volunteers. Number 5, empower reservists. 6, level up or leverage. And the last, we have organizational development. So these phases are strategically linked in support for a viable DRR training and volunteer management in keeping with the vision and mission, as well as the goals of the higher education institutions, and consistent with the guidelines set along the enactment of Republic Act Number 9163 and Republic Act Number 10121, the operation of the National Service Reserve Corps units for local disaster risk reduction training and volunteer reservists management following this continuum shall undergo the phases as mentioned earlier. With that, ladies and gentlemen, we say thank you very much. Magandang hapon.
So with that, we're fully energized. And so we would like to invite our presenters to please occupy the front table for our open forum. I have grouped the questions relayed to us to make it easier and more systematic. Let's shoot the first question first. This is, let's go direct to the point, please. This is for Dr. Please provide him a microphone. Dr. Ganzon. Ma'am, how did you handle the ethical considerations of the study, since the subjects of your study are special learners?
Hello, test.
Okay, so the respondents are actually the guardians or the parents, and informed consent were actually given prior to data gathering so that ethical considerations must really be followed since it will involve vulnerable groups, I mean. And so no names were actually mentioned and all informations were kept confidential.
Okay, there's a follow-up question. Can you give us a brief walkthrough on establishing the validity and reliability of the instrument?
Okay, sir. So the set of questions which were used in the study was actually modeled into the CASEL Collaborative on Social and Emotional Learning, but other parts were actually modified, and so we went through content validation, wherein 3 experts in CEL or Social and Emotional Learning have validated the questionnaire. Now, for reliability testing, it was the questionnaire, was actually pilot tested to about four parents or guardians of the non-graders so that we can establish reliability.
Okay, thank you, ma'am. I hope the one who asked the question is satisfied. This next question is for Dr. Ontanco. One of the outputs of your study is a model. Please enlighten us of how did you come up with a model in the absence of what's SEM as one tool in your data analysis?
Come again, sir, ESM.
Please enlighten us on how did you come up with a model in the absence of SEM, a statistical model probably?
Instructional equation modeling.
Okay. SEM as one tool in your data analysis.
Okay, so in my model, the proposed model, the instructional modeling is not actually give emphasis on it, since my model actually it was actually based on the results of the study, and this model are actually cater only for this outreach engagement of the public and academic libraries.
Okay, is that all, ma'am? Yes, Dr. Anikas, can you add?
I just want to add up with regards with SEM. Dr. Ontanco could not be able to use that one because we are only capable to use SEM, the structured equation modeling, if the respondents is more than 200. Okay? So we have only less than 40, so that's the reason why SEM could not be able to use it.
Okay, thank you, sir. Any additional Yes, ma'am. That's all. Okay, so thank you. This is this is still on outreach engagement of the public libraries. To date, how will you rate the effectiveness of your program? To date, how
What-
will you rate the effectiveness of your program?
In what program? Or which program, sir?
I don't know. I did not. It was not specified. Maybe generally speaking.
Regarding the program model? The 7?
Probably yes.
Yes, actually.
Did somebody will the one who asked the question clarify it, please?
May I ask to give this question, so please clarify?
Okay, unless otherwise, let's proceed to the next question. This is for Dr. Anicas. Can you share with us a feel of your research productivity in terms of 1, volume or numbers, 2, proportion of faculty members who are into research?
Okay. I would like to inform that actually I'm the academic manager of an institute in Saudi Arabia. And it so happened that I only applied for an indefinite leave. And it so happened that I was invited by Gordon College in preparation for the accreditation. So I just took up the office last November, November 2016. And upon starting the office, I can say that it is barely a bare office wherein just my working table and no researches within. But with the preparation for a month, because our accreditation is December 1, 2, and 3, and with my experiences, with my vast experiences in multidisciplinary research, we could able to make it, okay, the preliminary visit wherein even research as the area that the topmost considered in the accreditation out of 10 area, research place rank 1. Then that's the reason why from my office, I try to bring forth things and to let the faculty, the administrator, and non-teaching to be engaged in research. So as of November up to this date, I have 27 researchers done by my teachers, administrator, and another 17 is ongoing. We even invited Dr. Carmelo Vidal as the first keynote speaker for my first colloquium for the college. Then if you try to find it out, all my programs is always with first. First colloquium in the College of Arts Education, first colloquium in CBA, first colloquium in College of Health, Allied and Studies, and first colloquium in the College of Computer Studies. And aside from that, it's also the first time wherein I promulgated the first maiden issues of all journals from the different colleges and the first journal of Gordon College, which is the APO, which is known as the Olongapo, so that's the reason why. And it's continuous, okay? For this first semester, 9 approved studies. Then for the second semester, 8 approved studies. It's still ongoing. Okay, and some presented already in different SUCs, international conferences, and through the initiative of my office. So that's it.
Okay, thank you, sir, and congratulations. With many firsts, I'm sure there will be second and third and probably seventh, just like this conference, okay? This is for Dr. Amalio de la Cruz. What advocacies can you recommend to further improve the CSR involvement of the private schools?
Basically, when you look at the result of the research, I was looking actually during the focus group discussion that they are more involved in community extension. Probably we can promote the advocacy pertaining to what was mentioned by our president from BCY, that it should be a personal CSR 3.0. Since if you look at the community extension as well as the scholarship, it's sort of very general requirement, as already mentioned in the research. It's more from the students, the faculty members. Sometimes they are forced
especially the faculty members, especially including the students, because usually if there are students, there are faculty members. So
Yes,
if we
yes,
can
ma'am.
only disseminate what was mentioned, especially during, during conference about the personal
Involvement.
CSR, personal involvement of everyone, it will be better, and probably it will cascade from the top to the bottom.
Okay, thank you
That's it.
very much, ma'am. I think Dr. Tony Yap, our chairman, has to say something.
Ma'am, since you mentioned my name, I want to clarify if we're talking about the same things. What was the conclusion of your research? Because
Basically,
I saw your findings,
Yes.
but there was no conclusion. What was the conclusion?
actually, the conclusion was based on my evaluation. There's a need for more dissemination. What is really CSR, particularly for the educational institution, because they are giving a lot of different answer, the traditional definition. So that's why during the several seminars that I have attended, I have learned that there is a different definition pertaining to CSR for educational institution and what I am attending several conferences.
Now I'm confused, ma'am. What is the special definition for schools you're talking about?
When you talk about, based on the result, when you talk about CSR for them, it's more on community extension, giving scholarship, the traditional.
Yeah. For me, ma'am, there is no difference. Kasi we define three kinds of CSR. That's why we ask schools to choose the CSR that they will implement in their school. We're not imposing any. We're just laying out the land that here are three definitions. Please choose the one you like. But if you ask us, we think for a school, CSR 3.0 has more relevance. So if you do extension, charity work, adopt communities, that's the equivalent of charity and philanthropy in corporate social responsibility. So that's okay. I don't think it is wrong.
Yes, yes, yes.
And I think that people who do outreach,
Yeah.
offices in schools that help their communities, I think should be congratulated.
Yes, ma'am. Yes,
Because
sir.
the starting point for all CSR is volunteer work.
Yes.
It does not have to be anything grand. Just volunteer your time. To us, that is CSR, because personal charity is the fountainhead of personal CSR. If you're not a naturally charitable person, it will be hard.
Yeah.
And the challenge to us in schools is we impose it, whether in
Yes.
an STP or
Yeah.
something, when we know that there are people who are inclined differently. And I think the challenge to us is those individuals who are so differently inclined should not be seen as being wrong. I mean, maybe it's better to play basketball or computer games than volunteer. Because
Yes.
if you are forced to volunteer, you'll end up with really bad results.
Yeah.
And then you damage the communities you're trying to help or the individuals
Yes.
more than if you did not do anything. So for me, it's a two-step thing. I think that research is helpful because it came from our survey, di ba?
Yes, yes, sir.
And so we should publicize it. By the way, the result in the big universities is exactly the same.
Thank-
We did a survey in UST, it's the same.
The same.
So there's no problem. And so when we talk to people, we say, I don't think you should feel bad. I think you should recognize that at least there is some familiarity. Now, if the school can take that and focus it in some way, now that's a wonderful thing.
Yeah.
And so we say some schools should stick to 1.0 and focus on volunteerism and all that, and that's wonderful. You will not run out of things to research. For some, they may want to have the challenge of transformative, which is difficult because now you have to deal with big corporations and big NGOs and massive universities with 40, 50,000 enrollment because they have a unique role. And then the third one with us, the only question is, but are you willing to accept that schools should be social change agents?
Yeah.
If you don't accept that, you cannot do personal CSR. Because what's the point? And of course, we
It's
then encourage,
personal.
yes, we then encourage them, try to live it as a lifestyle. So citizenship issues, sustainability issues, then come to the fore. Now, if enough of us do that, now that's a movement. And I hope that through these annual conferences, we can encourage some of you to do that. CJ wants to say something.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Personally, I was just looking at the result, and I was telling myself that that is why there are a lot of complaint from students, because it should be from the word volunteer. So they should not be forced. They will be giving a lot of money for a specific project, and sometimes even the parents are complaining. That's what I'm saying. That is why it's a little bit different from what we are. It's traditional. It should be volunteer, and yet when they apply, it's totally different.
That's why kaming mga may-ari ng schools, kailangan kaming mag-usap. Kasi we need to encourage this other thing. And by the way, when you grade it, it becomes even worse. Kasi you're grading something that should come from the heart. Parang contradictory. Parang yung sa kanya, I'm excited that he's excited to do research in high school. If he's not excited, I don't want to talk to him. Because the essence of what we're talking about, research, CSR, is a personal enthusiasm and commitment.
Yes.
So, please, spread your virus. Ay, wag yung bird flu ah. Ano lang.
So in addition, syempre nga, I already mentioned, from top to bottom. So if we see that from the owner of the school, personal, di ba? Volunteer coming from them, although it's difficult to finance some of the projects, it would be better kasi at least 50-50 or something.
Pero ma'am, you don't need money. What I've discovered in 41 years as a volunteer, since matanda na po ako, 41 years, this year ako nagvo-volunteer. Siguro 80% did not need money, even the biggest projects. The intervention of BCYF is, you can ask us when you have no money. Because money is not the problem. First, it's enthusiasm. Second, is the ability to really understand your problem. Sometimes what you think is your problem, which is money, may not be the problem. Sometimes, however, you do need money, then brasuin natin ito mga may-ari. Ay, hindi, wag.
Yes po. Kaya nga sabi ko, it's better if they can identify a project we're in, but of course, whether you like it or not, when you implement a project, particularly from the point of view of an accountant, whether you like it or not, when there is a project, you will spend money. So siguro from that point of view, especially talking with the parents, talking with the students, that is why sometimes you can magnify the problem basically from the from the money. But then again, that's very, very nice to hear from one of the owner of the school.
Allow me to
Go on, please.
to sum up based on the collective assertions of Dr. Yap and Dr. Ami into the following ideas. Number one, the study was conducted to come up with a baseline reference. Dr. Yap was right when he mentioned that this is a very good reference points into coming up with a program in promoting CSR. Number two, there's diversity when it comes to CSR. Dr. Yap made mention about CSR 1.0 to 3.0, and regardless of whether you undertake 1.0, 2.0, 3.0, it's all under the umbrella of CSR. But what Dr. Ami was pointing out, it's that there was some sort of diversity of definitions and concepts which would somehow give us a hindsight view that these respondents have different perceptions, have different knowledge about that, and which would call to the fore a more aggressive promotion of CSR initiatives and CSR practice in the higher education institutions. Thank you.
I think that's a good summary. So, if I take it correctly, what you're saying, Dr. De La Cruz, is maybe we should have a better information campaign. So, yung lahat ng tinatago naming materials dapat labas namin, ano? So please visit bcyfoundation.org because there are 2 publications there that are free that you can download, which makes all of this definition. And then when you see it, if you need more, just send us. We'll be happy to share the information with you, including if you want to offer a complete course, certificate course, diploma course. Yan, meron tayong materials. We also, by the way, are the only organization ata that has written cases. Okay, we have international cases and local cases. We have cases that can be used as teaching material in college and graduate school, including a training program on how to use a modified version of the Harvard case method. So, for schools who may be interested, please email. May lumalabas na email dito kanina. By the way, yeah, if you have any questions today, just send it here. But there's another slide earlier, which, did you read it? We are sending everyone who gave us their email copies of all presentations. Copies of all the slides also. So by the same token, if you ask us, we are very happy to share these things. If you will acknowledge it, fine. If you will plagiarize it, it's fine. I don't care. Sige.
Okay, thank you very much, sir. At least in this conference, we're able to bridge gaps in definition as well as in understanding. And of course, the basic thing there is voluntarism starting from within our hearts. The next question is, by the way, addressed to Sir Rex Lohr. In social innovation, why is it important not to overserve?
Can I just put this one? Okay. Thank you very much. In social innovation, there's what we call an oversaturation or overfeaturing. When we come up with solutions, when it is usually systems-based or framework-based, meaning we start from the top to bottom approach of coming up with solutions in our social problems, in problems that we would like to change in our community, we have a tendency to overfeature. We have a tendency to give everything there. And what happens usually is we oversaturate everything. The usual things that we come up, like for example, how do I explain this? Like for example, you have a CSR that would bring about providing businesses for the fisher folk. And suddenly you come up with a you have a program already, you teach them how to do jobs, and then suddenly you start talking about an app. You start talking about a website for them. But you haven't actually been there, and you haven't actually spoken with them and empathized with them, that for one thing, they don't have computers. And the technology that they are currently holding right now is a Nokia 3310, which had been refurbished to death. Yeah, so 3310 is really good. I mean, the latest one now. But that's a usual problem when we tend to forget the users or the customers or the beneficiaries in our solutions. This is adopted really from lessons that innovative companies have done. That before, when they come up with apps or websites, they put everything there. And then when they look at the functionalities, no one's using it. Like take the case of, who uses Instagram? For example. Yeah, isa. May nakita akong isa. But anyway, Instagram used to look like Facebook. Everyone uses Facebook. Everything's there. But Instagram, when they look at Instagram, they just notice that people are just using the photo filters because they want the bad photos to look good. So they remove everything and just left the photo filters, and then it's there. We applied that concept in social innovation problems and realized that we actually learn from the people on the ground, from the grassroots, from sa mga tao, sa mga beneficiaries natin, and those who are doing and implementing the program. There are some things that we don't need to put. That's why we don't need to overserve them. We just need to come up with something that will engage them. We don't need to spend so much, in other words. That answers also the item on sustainability. Because featuring is really expensive. We come up with programs, we come up with so much things there, but they don't really need it and you have to spend for it. And realize later on that, hey, hindi mo naman kailangan.
Okay, thank you very much, sir. Let me mention that Mr. Rex Lohr takes charge of the innovation development and monitoring at the Hub of Innovation for Inclusion at the De La Salle College of St. Benil, where he plans, designs, manages, and monitors social startup incubation, social innovation, development programs, and special projects. He engages and initiates partners for cross-sector collaboration and capacity development. Okay. Our next question is, by the way, from for Mr. Oringo of Lorma College. I think there are 4 questions, but they're all related. So let me shoot the most important question. Who funds the international presentation of your students?
First of all, the good thing about this is that we're a private institution, so we need to deal with the parents, of course. So the students fund themselves. But that is one of our biggest problem nowadays because a lot of the research has been accepted for international publication. And our parents has limitation also. That is why when I presented our future plans, I try to negotiate or contact NCCA, National Youth Commission, because they provide funding. And the main problem is that it's not just, we are not informed about it. And the sad thing about it, most of those schools taking advantage of this funding by the government are from Manila. And only few from the provinces are aware of it. So that is what we found out. And we're capable of using it also. Yun naman po.
So we'll discover that when there are problems, good things arise. Okay? Now this one is, it says here, anyone could answer. Okay? CSR programs are usually bound by the directives or decisions of the business owner or board of trustees. And more likely, CSR is for profit. How do you change this mindset, realizing that if focus is on the profit, the impact of is limited and is mentioned? I think this has been answered already, that it's not for profit. Diba? So do we still have to answer? Yes, Dr. Vidal.
As pointed out earlier, there is a need to promote the concept of CSR, whether CSR 1.0, 2.0, or 3.0. The second point has to do with CSR as tantamount or equivocal to profit. I would say yes, because if you do good CSR programs, this would help the institution gain popularity and therefore would mean better income for these business entities. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much also. This is, I think, no name was mentioned, but for curiosity, how do your students manage their time between doing research and their academics?
Okay,
Oh,
I guess
I think
that's the question for me.
Yeah.
First of all, we try to integrate it in their curriculum. So for grades 9 and 10, they need to undergo research already. And at the same time, the good thing about our students is that they are willing to sacrifice their Saturdays to conduct the research study. And that enthusiasm is the thing that we don't want to wither. So we took advantage of their enthusiasm, sacrificing their weekends in order for them to conduct a research study. And the good thing about it is that they are not driven with the grades because we usually provide them with letter grades. So their motivation is really to solve the problems or issues in their society. And the good thing about it is that every time they heard different news in social media, they know how to assess it already. Because usually we teachers keep on telling them, you should learn how to check different information, but we don't allow them to practice or apply it. That is why that is the good thing about the research curriculum that we implemented in our school.
Okay, thank you, sir. This is for the organizers. One of the trusts in research is its utilization and dissemination. Can the organizers email to all the attendees all the presentations of today, especially, no, there's one, especially Dr. Tihanki's speech? Okay, same. Thank you. Oh, yeah. Yes, the one who asked it. Yeah, everything, okay? I think this one is so basic. So how do you encourage research? It's a difficult process, but how do you encourage? That's self-explanatory anyway.
But I will answer it, sir. Okay lang, sir. Ayan.
Sure.
Actually, sir, in the field of research talaga naman ang lagi na lang natin kino-concept is the difficulty of it. So yun yung approach na ginawa namin. Why don't you try to focus on the values first? Focus on the willingness before the skill on acquiring research also.
I'll give my 2 cents, okay? What I discovered having worked for a long time is that serious people who do research produce better results. People who are either in a hurry only or are not serious people, they tend to tell stories, have anecdotal evidence. But those who are willing to take on the mantle of research realize every time they open their mouth, that is either a good or a bad legacy. Research, therefore, for teachers and academics should be mandatory. When you're standing in your classroom and talking, Ma'am, I'm an accountant. I'm an accountant who loves research. And I love research. Yes. So I come from this small company called SGV. Okay. And one of the things I did from the first day I attended is I insisted to be given time to do research, even if I'm doing accounting work. At the time, there were no industry specialization. I said, if we have a job with this company, why can't we research all the companies in that industry, especially our clients, so we are better guided as professionals? Then when I agreed to teach in LaSalle, in the MBA program about 40 plus years ago, I said, why don't we do it based on research? So when you're standing in the classroom, any teacher who's serious, who does research, you don't have to speak well because you're speaking seriously on the basis of research. I think that is the larger aspect of research. When our foundation talked about research as a way of doing things, it was because, having been a professional in the region, everybody I talk with just talks well. I talk to Harvard guys from Oxford and Cambridge. I was head of recruitment worldwide. I used to fire these guys. They just talk too much. They cannot show me through research. I don't care if you're from Harvard. I don't care if you're from Yale. Show me that what you're talking about is research. And that is our, hopefully, message today. Whether it is CSR or anything you do, please do research. At the very least, talk to your neighbor, talk to your other teacher. That's research. Compare notes. Ask them, what book are you reading? If you are not good at reading, learn from them. That's research. Ask their permission to use the material. One of the things that is, I hope, basic in CSR is we should talk to each other. We should share. We are creating a community that's open. Imagine, what do you want? We'll share it with you. I don't think we've ever talked about money in 7 years. Maybe I should. So anyway, I hope when you leave, the one thing you will remember as a teacher, if you're a teacher or if you're in a corporate setting, you must do research. Even if all that means is talking to 2 people every day about what they're doing in an area, field, or subject you're teaching or are interested in. Then perhaps we can do something about the learning problems in our schools.
Okay, thank you. And one last question. Let me shoot this one. It's everybody's question. Sir, what time are we having lunch? So we all have the answers. Good noon to everyone, and thank you to our panelists. Good noon to everyone.
We shall now proceed to the distribution of Certificate of Appreciation. Next Certificate of Appreciation is presented to the Association of Private Schools, Colleges and Universities, Medyo Dagupan Chapter. The same certificate is presented to Gordon College. And last for this panel, we have University of Luzon. So once again, thank you very much to all the members of the panel. So later on, we shall still have 2 more panels of researchers.